In the finale to the original Michael Bay Transformers trilogy and its tie-in games, for as long as that lasted anyways, enter a game that went even further in the wrong direction. That game is Transformers, Dark of the Moon, Decepticons. Join the Decepticons in the events leading up to the third movie, where you'd actually be hard-pressed to find an actual reference to Earth's moon. Unlike the console version, this version is mostly the Decepticons dicking around, barely having a story whatsoever. But that's actually the least of our problems, as this is possibly the worst Transformers game on the Nintendo DS. If you hated the downscaling in Revenge of the Fallen, you will notice Dark of the Moon comes from a completely separate dimension. Remember how the original game had 6 playable characters? Revenge of the Fallen had 5. Dark of the Moon has an utterly pitiful selection of 4 characters, and unlike Revenge of the Fallen, where you could at least fly around in some missions in a limited fashion. Yeah, well, you can't fly at all. Most of the story is Starscream barking orders at the playable characters with next to no context. There are references to Shockwave, but as I said, minimal context is given to make you invested. You already would have to have seen the movie to understand any of this. There's also no Creator. You're stuck with film characters. Well, actually, you're stuck with 3 film characters, and 1 character that was added in as an afterthought that just so happened to be retroactively made an antagonist. Except he looks more like he did in Transformers Animated than he does Age of Extinction. Experience clunky-ass controls with stiff movement in robot form and super slippery dogshit movement in vehicle and stealth form. You can't even hit people unless you're facing directly forward, and it's nothing like the original game. Endure overly repetitive shooty levels that make you realize that Revenge of the Fallen did not fall to the bottom, because this game exists. But let me give you a little tip. When playing as Megatron in the last 2 levels, transform into stealth mode, and never transform back into anything else. Megatron fires rockets that speed up the killing of enemies much faster, and will help you get this game over with. Oh, and by the way, in the most awkward climax to a video game, guess who the final boss is? Is it Optimus Prime? Nope. It's Ironhide. Yeah, they made Ironhide the final boss in what was probably going to be the last licensed movie game. I know this game is a prequel to the movie, and so technically the climax actually occurred in that film in the standoff between Optimus, Megatron, and Sentinel. But since they were technically splitting Dark of the Moon's story into 2 parts, you'd want to have a more impressionable climax, would you not? Okay, whatever. What's done is done. Starring Megatron sounding more like Hugo Weaving, Starscream screaming orders, and an awkward final cutscene that references Ironhide winning the fight against Megatron. Ignoring what I did a mere 10 seconds ago comes one of the worst DS games I've ever played, like no other. Coming alongside the movie in June 2011, and they could have made up for the awful game by including Linkin Park, but don't worry, I'll fix that for you.
The time has come for a strategic retreat. We must mass our strength so that in our next encounter, we can crush them to dust before they have a chance to resist.
Do you feel cold?